Hi, YA Lit Group. I wanted to create a video about the unit plan since we won't have too much time, if any, to talk about it in class. We will be meeting one-on-one next week where you will have a general proposal due and we will be conferencing about your ideas specifically. But that said, this should give you some general background information about the expectations and the requirements. So in order to find those details from our home Canvas page, if you click within assignments, that information for both the proposal and the unit plan are right here on the assignment page within that specific assignment. So for the unit plan, in general, there are a lot of similarities with the requirements for the unit plan for the reading class that you've already taken. I know that you all have already created one 5-day unit, and so you have a little bit of practice and experience with that. And so you can approach it in much of the same ways that you approached the unit for the reading plan. Now, one of the difference there is that you are not required to choose a set number of strategies or strategies within specific areas for this unit. If you remember, for the reading unit, you had to choose vocabulary strategies and writing strategies. But for this unit, you're not required to make sure that you are meeting standards and strategies within all of those different areas. For this unit, you can focus on the content of the material that the students are reading in general. So I'm expecting to see reading standards, probably quite a few literary text, although it'd be great to include informational text within this unit. I think that would be a really good idea, although that's not a requirement. You may choose writing standards and language standards as they are appropriate. Same thing with speaking and listening, but that is not an overall requirement for this unit. So, think carefully, thoughtfully, creatively about the best way to teach the content that you're covering, but there is not an obligation to also be having students meet language standards. In fact, overall, because a 5-day unit is pretty short, you may only have something like maybe 3 to 5 standards that you're meeting across the unit. And it's okay for those standards to mostly be related to the reading, in the reading category. Again, you can choose more and you can have other areas represented, but it's not a requirement for you to do so. Now, that said, what I would recommend and what I'm hoping to see is that you are including really the kind of the theories, the philosophies, the strategies that you have learned about within this course. So you guys have read chapters on using writing to teach young adult literature. And so, I certainly hope that any writing that you're having them doing is kind of theoretically grounded in what you've learned about teaching writing in the reading class, in the YA class. But it is not a requirement to make sure that you are addressing all of those different areas. So one of the requirements, given this is a young adult literature class, is that you are teaching young adult literature. So you have a variety of ways that you can approach that. So one of them is if there is a YA novel that you particularly liked, one that you think would be particularly important, whether it's one we read as a class or ones that you chose on your own, that you would love to teach to a class, then you may teach one novel within the 1 week time period. So you choose a YA novel, you're going to be teaching that novel throughout that week, and that would be fine. Another way that you might do so is you may want to pair a YA novel with classic literature. So maybe you as you ran across a certain novel, you thought, oh, this would work so well with this classic piece of literature that students often read. So that may be pairing 2 novels. That may be pairing a YA novel with classic poetry or short stories or something like that. So you can pair more classic literature with YA literature. Another option would be to choose something that's more classic and then supplement with YA literature. And YA literature is not only novels. So I know that I'm saying novels, but you could bring in young adult poetry written by young people for young people. You might bring in YA short stories. And so you're not limited to just choosing novels, but you may choose, and you're also not limited to just choosing literature. So again, you may choose like a more classic unit or more classic novel, and then think about the ways that you could creatively supplement that with young adult literature. Another way that you could do it is, I would be fine with you creating literature circles, where throughout the course of the week, different groups of students are going to be reading one of 3 or 4 young adult novels. And so you are structuring it in a way, I would imagine, where you're doing something overall, kind of talking about the broader theme on day 1 and posing some good kind of universal questions. And then throughout the week, students are going to be doing some different tasks with their own novels, but there may be some times where they're overlapping, where they're meeting in different groups and kind of sharing what they've read and then how that relates to an overall theme or question that you're asking students to consider. But that would be another way to approach this. I'm assuming that there's other ways to approach it as well, so let me know. You can think creatively about this, but of course you have to make sure that you are teaching young adult literature. So beyond that, and thinking about the requirements in general, so with the unit plan, like with the unit plan you did for the reading class, there are going to be 3 sections that you will need to submit. So that will be your unit overview, and those details are right here. Your 5 days of ONU lesson plans, and those should be the ONU lesson plans, which you can always get the most updated one through the Teacher Education Handbook in My Olivet. So making sure that you are following the ONU lesson plan. And then the last requirement is that you are submitting any materials that you're using for the unit. And these should be all of the materials that you're going to be using with your group of students. So if you're going to be doing an introductory PowerPoint where you are introducing the theme of the unit, then please create that PowerPoint so I can see what you're using to introduce this. There should be any handouts that you're creating, and should also include the assessments. So, as you know from the reading class and your other education classes, you should have formative assessments along the way, leading up to a summative assessment. And that summative assessment should tell you the extent to which each student knows what you want them to know and can do what you want them to do according to the standards and the learning outcomes that you have set up for the course. And so you're probably already familiar with this process, but I would encourage you to do kind of backwards planning. So if at the end of the unit, I want them to be able to analyze text and use textual evidence to support their analysis of a character in the novel, then I need to think about what am I going to do to assess their ability to do so. You could do that a ton of different ways. That could look like a more traditional literary analysis paper. That could look like a project where a variety of students are going to work on one character, or you are going to group students after first grouping them for literature circles for each novel. Then maybe now you're going to split them into different groups, and they're going to instead address an overall theme, and each student is going to talk about a character within their respective novel. But think about the best way you can be, as creative as you want to, give them choice, give them a variety of projects, but how at the end of the unit are you going to measure their ability to do whatever it is that you set out as a goal, considering, the Common Core standards for the unit. Then once you've determined that, then you can back up and think through, what am I going to do throughout the week to get students to this end goal? So again, if they're going to be analyzing a theme over the course of the novels, then what am I going to be doing that week to help them to do so? So maybe first on day 1, I'm going to be introducing the theme. So maybe the theme is the American dream or adversity, or something like that. I'm going to introduce it on day 1 and kind of go through what we're going to be focusing on throughout the unit, within each of the text or within the one text related to that. And then each day of the unit, how am I going to help students to move throughout the unit so that at the end they're able to complete that summative assessment. Throughout the week, that could look like, the students reading the first couple of chapters and then you giving them a graphic organizer where they are noting throughout, each chapter, where is this theme developing? How is it developing? What textual evidence is being used to further their understanding of the theme of the novel? So that's just one example. But whatever it is that you're asking them to know and to be able to do by the end of the unit, think about how you can scaffold it for the students. What activities are they going to be doing? What else are you using? What other text are you using to supplement? So again, if you're using a if you're using a theme on the American Dream and the students are reading, Kwame Alexander, Jason Reynolds, and Angie Thomas, then you may also bring in on a certain day articles that have to do with diversity and social justice today. Maybe you're bringing in some newspaper articles. Maybe you are bringing in some historical artifacts. So what other text are you going to be bringing in to supplement? What activities are they going to be doing? Discussion? Are they going to be doing Socratic seminars? Are they going to be discussing in groups? What other materials? So that might look like, are you going to be giving them graphic novels? Not graphic novels. Are you going to be giving them, you could use graphic novels, but that's not what I was referring to. Are you going to be giving them graphic organizers to help and support their understanding throughout the course of the novel? So a lot of things to think about with the unit plan. One other thing I want to make sure to mention is that I would like for you to be using original ideas and creating original material. So you all found great teaching sites and lesson plan ideas, and in some cases even unit plan ideas. And that's fine to kind of get you thinking, but I want your unit to be original because you need to have practice creating an original unit, since that is a lot of what you're going to be doing in your own future classroom. And so, if you're inspired by something else, great, you can go ahead and cite that, but I don't want you just going and finding worksheets or finding activities other places. I want you to sit down and you to plan what are your goals for this unit, how are you going to get students from point A to point B, and then how, when they get to point B, are you going to assess their knowledge and ability. So what you choose in terms of a theme, what you choose in terms of standards, what you choose in terms of the goals for the unit are going to completely depend on what your focus is and what are your goals for the unit. And I did mention within learning outcomes, you can have goals outside of just the standards. So sure, you may choose that they are going to be analyzing a theme and using textual evidence, but you may choose a larger theme or have a larger goal of something like helping students to explore their own identity and understanding cultural differences. And so the activities and the things that they're doing throughout the course are working towards that goal while also analyzing the theme within the novel. And so it's great to have goals even outside of the standards. And then I would encourage you overall to approach your unit with an overarching theme so that it's clear to you and to the student, the goals and kind of the overarching plan for the unit. So like I said, next week we'll be conferencing. Looking forward to hearing your ideas. There's information about what should be included on your proposal within that assignment, and that'll make sense to you based on having done a proposal before in the reading class.